Hey hand towels and party fouls. So a couple of years ago, my wife and I did one of those mud runs. It's basically where you run on this track filled with all of these different climbing walls and monkey bars, all of which are submerged or over top of these mud pits. And I think that the point of the race is actually to avoid the mud, but I tell you what, when I saw that messy goodness, I just couldn't help but do a huge belly flop. To be honest though, the run we went on was actually a little bit lame. It was obvious that the organization that put it on did not put a cap on their registration, so there were just way too many people there. And the real problem was on the course, because as you got to each obstacle, you had to stop running and you basically had to wait in line because everyone in front of you was still going through that obstacle. And I think that in life, there are obstacles like that. There are things in this life that it seems like every person goes through. And when we are going through it and we tell someone about it, they kind of look at us sometimes and they're like, get in line. Everybody goes through that. These are the things that we're going to be talking about in this new series, Overwhelming Obstacles. These are those messy, difficult, scary things that everybody has to face, but very few people know how to deal with. And today we're going to start by talking about a pretty scary obstacle. Today we're going to talk about fear. Now, as I said before, everybody knows what fear is. Everybody knows what it feels like. Everybody has faced it. And for most of us, it's not going away anytime soon. So today, I want to talk about 3 ways that we can identify fear to better help us to deal with this monster when it comes along. To start, we need to backtrack a little bit. You see, fear has been instilled within us as human beings since nearly the beginning of time. When our ancestors were walking through a forest, and they came to the edge of a cliff, fear is what kept them from leaping off of that cliff. In this way, fear can actually be a good thing. And that's the first identifying trait of fear. Fear can be a companion. Unfortunately, there may be times in life where you may face something that is truly dangerous. And in those moments, fear will kick in to help keep you and maybe your loved ones on the side of safety. This was sort of the first initial function for this emotion of fear, and it is still necessary at certain times today. However, for most of us in our day-to-day lives, we do not find ourselves hunting lions or jumping off cliffs. The things that we fear are a lot more docile than that. We have a fear of the future, or we're afraid of getting hurt in a relationship. The most common fear of all human beings is public speaking. Are these things that we should actually be afraid of? Can any of these things actually hurt us? No, not really. So in cases like these, fear is not a companion. In these cases, fear can be a clown. There are times in life where we will be afraid, where we just do not need to take that fear seriously because it's trying to keep us from doing or being or trying something that could never really bring any harm to us. You could think of it this way. Fear is a companion when it keeps you from jumping out of a plane. But fear becomes a clown when there's a parachute attached to your back. Jump, baby, jump. Now, the last identifier of fear is extremely important, and it's not something we really talk about a lot. I remember about a year ago, my wife and I, we were living in New York City, and I was finishing up working in a show as an actor. And while everything in life looked really good on the outside, I knew that on the inside, I hadn't really been happy for months. I wasn't really finding joy in working where I was working or living where I was living. Deep down, I knew that I wanted so badly to move back to Chicago and to try to do this YouTube speaker author thing full time. But for months, I didn't say anything about it because I was afraid. I was afraid that it wouldn't work. I was afraid of what other people might think. I was afraid that my wife wouldn't like the idea. Eventually, though, I was able to push through that fear and to make that decision. And now, sitting here in hindsight, I can see that that is exactly what God wanted me to do the whole time, even though I was afraid of it. We've talked about how fear can be a companion, and we've talked about how fear can be a clown. But fear can also be a compass. Sometimes the thing we're most afraid of is the exact thing we need to do. Think about Peter getting out of the boat to walk on the water. Think about David going down into the valley to fight Goliath. Or even think about Jesus as he stumbled through the streets on his way to the cross. Do you think these guys experienced fear? Absolutely! But in these cases, through prayer, these men were able to discover that the thing that they feared was actually pointing them in the exact direction that God wanted them to go. Fear can be a compass. In the end, though, whether you're laughing at fear, allowing it to protect you or direct you, we cannot allow it to keep us from taking action. We must not let fear hinder us from pursuing God with all our hearts. And when we feel weak in that, when we feel in danger of allowing fear to paralyze us, we have to remember in those moments that God's love is greater than any fear we could ever face. And when we allow ourselves to be led by the love of the Father, His sacrificial, courageous, all-encompassing love, when we have a love like that on our side, what do we need to be afraid of? Thank you all for watching this 7-minute sermon. I hope it was encouraging to you. If you are struggling with fear or anxiety right now, if you thought of anyone in your mind while you were watching who might be struggling with fear, send them the video. Perhaps it will be a blessing to them as well. And do not forget to tune in when we have our next installment of Overwhelming Obstacles. We are going to be talking about those tough, difficult things over the next couple months, and I'm excited to dive into them with you. That's all I have for you. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend or week or whenever it is you're watching this. I love you all. Keep being awesome.